Hi, I hope everybody's having a great Friday. We're going to kick it off with part two of this digitally trapped, right? There is so much to share, but one of the things that I found, and I think it's critical that we take a peek at it, I'm not sure whether a lot of people remember this. But first, let me make sure that my sounds are okay and everything is working and you guys can hear me, because if that doesn't work, we're not going to be doing much. But it looks like we are. So I'm going to share this screen with you, and I'm going to tell you what's happening here. This is from back in trial one, when Ian Whiffen was testifying and providing his timetable, right? His timeline of what happened and when did it happen. And I need you to listen to this. This is outrageous. Listen to this. Let me see if I can bring it up. Okay, hold on. Don't tell me it went away. Don't tell me it went away. Here we go.
Phone call lasts 36 seconds, starting at 18 minutes and 47 seconds. That call ends at 19 minutes and 23 seconds, and the mobile phone application is closed at 19 minutes and 24 seconds. At 19 minutes and 29 seconds, the Waze application is loaded on screen. And at 20 minutes and 49 seconds, which is what this location on the side relates to, we see an incoming message.
So the first text message was Jen McCabe's, not the 12:20:49. It was Jen McCabe's text message at 12:20:12 seconds. Here, that was the first text message. The second one was Higgins, noting that they are at two different places, right? Let's continue to watch.
Message from Brian Higgins saying, "You coming here?" At 22 minutes and 14 seconds, this
is important. Listen to what he says at 12:22:14, right? Which at this point in our timeline, he's already at the house, right? But listen to what Higgins says.
Start of the 3 flight climb events as the device is driving along Oakdale Road, I believe.
Okay, and what did we already determine? You cannot register flights climbed when a phone is in motion inside a car. This little piece right here just tells me how stupid Ian Whipped Cream think we all are. If it has already been established that you cannot register flights climbed in a moving vehicle when the phone is inside a moving vehicle, then how is he pitching in the middle of the courtroom in front of a jury that while the car is moving through Oakdale, it's registering 3 flights climbed? Listen to this.
That one is. At 24 minutes and 26 seconds is when the Waze application is closed.
And that is wrong. Based on his own report, that is wrong.
And the device is locked via the lock button at 24 minutes and 28 seconds. At 24 minutes and 37 seconds, the three flight climb events comes to an end.
So at 12:24, right, the 3 flights climbed event comes to an end. Because at that point was just merely seconds before John collapsed. So this is very interesting what he's doing here. It's almost like he's trying to intertwine accurate information with false information. He's trying to sort of masquerade where was the phone at a specific time by implying that at a time that is convenient to him, that phone is traveling in a car, climbing stairs through Oakdale. So unless you do this like very slowly, it is very easy to miss.
And at 24 minutes and 38 seconds is the first record that shows a speed of 0 meters per second.
0 meters per second. And that is at the same time that we have just concluded that John collapsed. Now, I'm going to stop 1 second and I'm going to leave it right there. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background here. So, there's a coordination of how they are conveying this information to us. Okay. And that's the backbone of this. That's why I called it. It's a digital trap. So between the coordination and the separation of the devices, if you are attempting to pair the movement and the health data of John O'Keefe, right, and Jennifer McCabe, and where is the phone at given times, the timings assigned to these events plays a very significant role. Now, you can objectively highlight coincidences, right, that suggest a high level, sort of like a situational awareness that he's trying to sort of like, inflict in all of us as we listen to him. But when I talked about a potential choreography yesterday, it's almost like a dance, right? Because don't forget that the waste call overlaps between the call that John and Jen were on through the Bluetooth of the Yukon until the 12:20 a.m. text that Jen sent to John asking him here. So I don't know if this is huge to me. And this is not the first time I see it, but every time that I put it into a different sort of wording or a table, it gets even more real. Why? Because you can only occupy one space at a time, right? And if there were key players and key simultaneous situations, calls, WhatsApp happening all between 12:18, which is when that call started, the last call that Jen McCabe placed from the Yukon to John prior to arriving to 34 Fairview was at 12:18 and 44 seconds. The last text that she sent to him was at 12:20, 12 seconds. During those little minutes, not even 3 minutes, less than 2 minutes, John and Jen are talking on the phone. There are other occupants inside that Yukon that are listening to that call. If Chris Albert indeed jumped with Matt McCabe and Jen McCabe on the Yukon and followed, as he said and stated on the trial, followed Brian Albert and all of them to 34 Fairview, he was a part of that call. So if you've ever wondered, why is it that Chris has never texted, never called John, even though he was the one who invited him to the waterfall, right? And they were all going to 34 Fairview. That's your answer. He didn't have to call him. He didn't have to text him. He was inside the Yukon and he was listening to that call. In the meantime, the call starts. It's between Jen, John, Matt McCabe, and Chris is in the car, right? And at some point, John opens up his WhatsApp and he Googles 34 Fairview. And he completes that search before that call ends at 12:19 and 36 seconds. 12:19 and 36 seconds. If I try to figure out how many seconds have passed between 12:19 and 36 to 12:20, it's less than 54 seconds. 44 seconds. So what does that tell me? If I'm in the phone with you and you're saying, so how far are you? And I'm going, wait, let me see. I'm going to look at my weights, and I open it up and I'm talking to you on the phone and I put you on a speaker. Oh, wait. Yeah, no, I'm not that far. I'm maybe like around the corner. Oh, okay. So we'll see you soon. and we hang up at 12:19:36, it explains why at 12:20 a.m. and 12 seconds, Jen McCabe is asking here because she knows that he was what? Just steps away from arriving. Now, the 12:20 and 49 text message from Higgins not only shows that Jen and Higgins were at two different locations, right? But it also shows sort of like a separation between Jen and Higgins because Higgins didn't know that Jen had texted him. Jen didn't know that Higgins was going to text him. And Higgins didn't know that Jen already knew that he was about a corner, a few steps away from the 12:19:36 phone call that hung up at that time, that they ended at that time, to arriving to 34 Fairview. So we can use the timeline to show that not only in the Yukon Denali was likely there was the awareness of John's proximity, exact proximity to the house, but also that the 12:18:44 call from the Denali, it coincides based on the Bluetooth location and the connectivity. It coincides with also her pulling in to 34 Fairview. She arrived there before John O'Keefe arrived there. If the Bluetooth is connected in a call with John O'Keefe until 12:19:29, while the call is still active, John Weiss is searching for 34 Fairview, concludes the search, and before he concludes the search, he lets them know, and the call is ended after he knows where 34 Fairview, how close to 34 Fairview is. Not only it explains the 12:20 text message from Jen because she knew that he was around the corner, but also explains why Chris never called, never texted John to figure out where the heck he was, because he was inside that Yukon and he knew. He was part listener on that conversation. So there's an awareness argument here, right? And those are the basis for that. Now, because John's phone is connected to the car's Bluetooth, like, what do you call it? The Bluetooth on the Yukon, and they pulled in, how do we know that some of the Alberts that were there could not potentially hear that John was seconds away? What do you do when you're expecting somebody to show up at your house? You're in an alert mode, right? Because you're waiting for them to what? To pull up. Pull up. Now, at 12:20:12, when Jen sends that text, John is seconds away, 36 seconds away, right? And then there's the "where are you" text, which I'm not sure if you all know, but initially it was made aware that the Higgins text to John was not "are you coming here?" It was "where are you?" Right? Matt Kelch showed up, and actually also showed up in a court hearing, and also called into the Glarer show. And nobody was able to identify or figure out that it was Matt Kelch calling. Matt Kelch is Higgins' best friend. Matt Kelch is the FBI friend that helped him at the lobby of the FBI building to get Higgins his screenshots that he needed on the 31st of January, nonetheless, to have ready, because at that point, for some reason, he knew he was going to need to back up his end of the story. Matt Kelch said on that live show when he called in the Glarer, those calls are curated. The text messages are curated. He wasn't suggesting it. He was telling the Glarer that those texts were curated. Now, this isn't a "where are you" text. It is a confirmation text that if somebody is expecting to see somebody, like, a driver is expected to see headlights and, for instance, doesn't, or someone is expecting somebody to show up at an exact location and it's been over 15, 19 minutes and the person is nowhere to be found, That "where are you" text from Higgins lets us know that John never showed up where he told Higgins originally that he was going to show up. So there's not only a divorce as far as the trigger in the devices, there's a divorce between Jen and Higgins. There's a separation between where is Higgins at versus where is John at. Now, if we dig further into Jen's health data and the anomaly and the mind-blowing information that it conveys when you match it with 12:20 to 12:45 a.m., there's a critical point, okay, on all of these findings when you put it together into context. And it's a discrepancy between Jen's iPhone and her Apple Watch. I know that you've heard this. Lana touched bases on this. Lana has been pounding on this since day one. Lana was the one who found out that at 12:12 in the morning at 12 Country Lane, the phone was downstairs while the watch was upstairs. I'm sure you remember that, because this is not new. This is not new for a lot of us, maybe for a few of us, but not for all of us. So she's frozen, guys. Her health data from pretty much 12:20 a.m. If we watch these records, there's a significant low heart rate and 0 steps, suggesting that Jen McCabe is stationary, meaning she's either frozen or she's sitting somewhere or she just sat and hid. I have no idea. We don't know. All we can do is imagine what this means to us based on the data that we have found. The phone activity, all simultaneously, right? Her phone shows active use, specifically the multiple calls that she did, and she texted John right up to 12:20 and 12 seconds. But if Jen was pacing, right, or frantically looking for John, let's say, outside, as she was claiming, both of her devices would typically record those movements. It would show evidence of that. But the fact that the watch worn by her, right, the watch was on her person, because the only way that the phone can register or record anything is if it's attached to us, not if it's sitting in a counter or attached to us. The watch stayed on her the entire time, and sometimes stayed on her when she was active on the phone, suggesting that she was either sitting perfectly still, right, manipulating her phone, or the devices were physically separated. One of the two. One sitting on a charger or on a table while the other one is being used. There's a coincidental timing here when we look at the 36 steps that supposedly John took between 12:31:16 to 12:32, 12:31:56 to 12:32:16, and Jen's calls. If we pair John's final phone interaction with Jen's outgoing calls to show a possible location and placement sequence, the first thing that we're going to see is that the last 7 seconds at 12:31:56, John records 36 steps, approximately 72 feet, 84 feet, right? Until 12:32, whatever. The pocket state clears, but the phone is picked up and turned over at 12:32:03. If the pocket state of the phone clears because it's picked up or turned over, and at 12:32:04, the failed Face ID attempt is logged on that phone record, that's why that phone is manually locked. Now, the correlation of all of it is that during that entire sequence, what begins is exactly 2 minutes after Jen called at 12:29:44, We can argue that that call acted as if it was almost like a homing beacon, right? Like for somebody inside the house to find that phone, transport it 84 feet, 36 steps to the flagpole, right? Attempted to do the Face ID, but it failed. And then the only logical automatic option was what? Lock it on the side button on the side. Recapping, the battery temperature during that time was 72 degrees, suggesting that that phone was inside, not outside. Now, at 12:37, despite of being outside, because it was just brought out, right? And it was about 19, 20 something degrees outside, the battery room is still 72 degrees. So was it taken out, locked on the side button, or placed on airplane mode, somehow turned off and brought back inside? Because if it was turned off, then we would lose it, right? We don't know whether it was brought back inside GPS wise. But when it comes to the accelerometer built in on the phone, that's a different story. As long as it's on somebody's hands, right? As long as it's on, right? But not if it's off. So what happens to Jen during this time? Because her watch not only shows that she's freaking frozen, and I'm not saying like she's cold, no, she's not moving. She's frozen, and sort of like heading outside of the house. Her watch, did she sit inside the Yukon? Was she like, was that the only, like somebody's bringing the phone out and at the same time she's also coming outside and she just locks herself on the Yukon and she's frozen in there like in shock? I've always been into building rather than destroying. And when it comes to this case, it's like I found myself trying to destroy the Commonwealth theory just because in my mind, logically, it doesn't make any sense. But if I switch into the builder in me, right? Because I'm also into building stuff. Like if I want to build a bridge between all of these findings, the house alone to die in the cold, the fact that she freezes like a fish, the fact that it coincides with the same time that the phone is being brought outside after it's being located. What my research has found is that it fits not only into Jen's heart rate, how it spikes later on that morning, right? But in an effort to integrate all of it together, synchronized from the 12:20 a.m. text message right before John pulls up at 12:21:10 and the expectation that he was coming in and groups of people knowing that he was coming in, it is almost impossible not to understand that all of these events happen simultaneously. Now, we can argue these texts were sent seconds apart, right? There were multiple people inside 34 Fairview or coming in to 34 Fairview, right? Jen had already pulled in. I know that John was already collapsed, dead or dying by 12:24:10. So the fact that the texts, even if they came in, were not read until after 12:24:38 a.m. is the strongest physical evidence or behavioral evidence that there was a handoff right after 12:24:38 when that phone potentially dropped or got detached from John, spent 8 minutes without any triggers, any artifacts recording, no movements, absolutely no nothing until the 12:29:44 trigger call, right? That made the phone be visible and then brought at 12:31:56, adding another cluster showing that there is another person interacting with this phone that sees the notifications come in the moment that the phone comes outside. Signal from cell towers is triggered, and the notification that the text messages that had come in pop up at 12:31, showing red at 12:25 after the 12:24:38. It's funny how Within actually talks about the Face ID failing and the manual lock, and how he tries to manipulate the times in which this happens. So we're going to continue to watch the rest of this. It's not that long.
Second. At 24 minutes and 59 seconds, the device is unlocked using Face ID, and the message "you coming here" is read at 25 minutes and 8 seconds after midnight. At 25 minutes and 9 seconds after midnight, the device is locked using the lock button. At 27 minutes and 33 seconds after midnight, a text message is received from Jen McCabe saying "here."
Now he's saying...
At 27 minutes and 45 seconds after midnight, the device is unlocked using Face ID, and the "here" message that was just received is read at 27 minutes and 48 seconds.
Did you hear what he said before? He said it was unlocked with Face ID.
At 27 minutes and 50 seconds, the lock button is pressed by the user, causing the device to lock. At 29 minutes and 37 seconds, we start to get some Doppler checks, and at 29 minutes and 42 seconds, the pocket state cleared event is written. At 29 minutes and 44 seconds, there's an incoming call from Jen McCabe. This is answered and lasts for 7 seconds, ending at 29 minutes and 51 seconds. At 29 minutes and 52 seconds, the device is unlocked, and a second later, the lock button is pressed, causing the device to lock again. 31 minutes and 47 seconds after midnight, a message is received again from Jennifer McCabe saying "pull behind me." And at 31 minutes and 52 seconds, the Doppler check records a pocket state. At 31 minutes and 56 seconds, we start the health event that shows 36 steps were taken. And at 32 minutes and 3 seconds, there's a pocket state cleared event. At 32 minutes and 4 seconds, the device unlocks with Face ID. And again, I'll point out that makes perfect sense if the Doppler state clears, because it's...
Are you listening to this?
It's no longer within a pocket, and then it unlocks a second later. That makes sense with the logic that's been identified. At 32 minutes and 5 seconds, messages applications on screen, and the message "pull behind me" is read. 32 minutes and 9 seconds, the messages application is closed, and the device is locked for the last time. At 32 minutes and 16 seconds, the 36-step health event is ending.
So these are not like, casual shakings. This is all context of a separation theory. These texts are acting as a digital trap. They are establishing a record that these occupants were waiting for someone, right? For the man to show up. Based on everything that I have analyzed, 12:24:38, John collapses, which means that they may have had already intercepted him. So what do you think? There were so many calls. Every single call was deleted on Jen's phone. in a specific period of time. It is so easy to be able to sort of like bring to light third-party manipulation of evidence, because if they fail to actually bring some sort of competency to the gaps that exist, then you have Joan's phone showing active movements, stairs and steps until when? 12:24:38. When can that not happen? When a person is with his phone inside a moving vehicle. If he was conscious and in possession of his phone, right, at 12:20 a.m., showing basic human behavior, suggesting that he would have and could have replied to the or read the message text right at 12:20, right? But why didn't that happen? Because at 12:19:36 he had completed the search on Waze. He had already hung up the phone with Jen. He had already let them know how close they were to 34 Fairview. At 12:20 and 12 seconds, Jen had said here because she knew he was just around the corner. At 12:21:10, he gets out of the car. Everybody in that house was waiting for him. He gets intercepted, and in less than 3 minutes and 19 seconds, by 12:24, he's down. So those 8-minute gaps, the gaps in the 8 minutes between 12:24:38 and 12:31:56, there's not even a cluster of events that exists during those 8 minutes. And the only thing that triggers the following cluster is the 12:29 call by whom? By Jen McCabe. So what I'm deducting and what I confirm here is that between 12:20 and 12:32, on behalf of what do you call it? Both Joan and Jen, there's both a stationary event until the phone is found at 12:29:10. Jen's on her watch while her phone is stationary too. Joan's phone comes outside and Jen's watch shows her coming outside too. The red status only updates when the second user, whoever had that phone, who failed the Face ID, picked up the device, clearing the Doppler pocket state, and at 12:20, the whole thing starts. That's when the whole thing started, and it ended at 12:24:38. The fact that the phone is manually locked and this alibi texts that were sent back and forward and read at 12:35 and 12, that didn't happen. The Doppler pocket state checked at 12:32:03 a.m. That's technical proof for that exact moment. And it also proved that the phone went from being covered, right, stationary, hidden, like face down, the pocket state was not cleared, right, until the exact moment that the texts that were sent at 12:20 were actually read after John collapsed. I know there is a lot to digest, but I think they should have had semantically dissected all of it, starting by explaining what pocket state means. That is not a GPS sensor that knows when the phone is, literally in a pocket. That what it is it's an indication of Doppler proximity recorded by the phone front face sensor. And if an incoming call or a notification occurs, The phone checks first if the front camera is blocked. Why? To prevent any accidental, anything touches or anything that we may do that we don't want to do. The fact that it was cleared at 12:32:03 means that the front camera went from being totally blocked, obscured, face down, to not. And then it became exposed to light or up to the skies. Now, there is I'm going to call it, because let me see if I can. I'm going to show you something. Hold on. Okay, we're going to go from here. I'm going to go back to the thing. I can't see anybody or chats or anything, but I'm going to go back in a second. Give me 1 second. Okay. Yeah, it looks like it's going to allow me to do that. I'm going to put this chart and I'm going to share it on the community posts, so you can actually print it if you like to, or use it, or compare it with your own notes. But I think we're going there. There's nothing else to do on this department. It's like there's absolutely nothing that will argue the findings after scrutinizing all of this forensic digital evidence this much. The only thing that I can tell you is that within the dump of all those documents, and I started sort of like giving you a little bit of heads up, the people that were testifying in trial in regards to all of this were not necessarily hired, outsourced, or contracted to investigate what happened, to analyze the data. That was not what the aim was. So if we follow a logical sort of like chain of command, right? When things like this happen, Norfolk County has their own forensic analyst people. And that would be Guarino and the other two troopers that showed up. Then you get Trooper Paul when it has to do with reconstruction accidents that have to do with cars. That's what he does. But if we follow all of this and we understand what Ian Whipcream testified on trial, he said he got a call from his PR person from Celebrate, right? We also know that the defense people on Karen Reed, they hired Richard Green, who had a company, a digital forensic company established, and was in the business in doing this, right, in this industry. And they contacted him to provide an opinion, analyze the data, and do what he needed to do on these instructions, right? That's what they did. They needed an expert to actually analyze, research the data. Part of Richard Green's analysis took him to place a call directly to Celebrate, which is one of the tools that Richard Green uses in his company. This is how Ian Whipcream and Jessica Hamburger were born into this, the pregnancy ended. This is how they were born. Instead of calling Richard Green back, the person, the intaker of that call at Celebrate, normally they do an email, they escalate it, they send it to the right channels, and then it gets from this person to this person until it reaches the right person, right? Project manager at the time, Ian Whipcream, project manager. Oh my God. I'm sure that by now you understand why am I so like livid and pissed about this entire thing. And it's because none of it makes sense, right? It doesn't make sense. But the project manager was contacted by give me 1 second. User interaction with Officer General Key phone after he is incapacitated per exactly. Yeah. I mean, they said it themselves, right? I mean, and if you actually slow down every time that Ian Whiffen has testified, both on trial 1 and trial 2, and we know that they went back and their attempts were to delete, modify, and change the software so the house loan to die in the cold would never be found, even though it's still available in Axiom and in other platforms that consequently work in this type of things, right? They're in the same sort of industry. So, but there was a reason why. Okay, so let me ask you a question. If I am going to outsource, let's say that I have I don't know, let's say that I have a coffee shop and I'm looking to bring in a different sort of flavor without compromising the original taste of coffee. But I want to aim to a more decadent and sort of like very original coffee taste that it's totally unique, that is what's out there, right? And everybody can argue, well, there's a Starbucks, there's Dunkin' Donuts, there's little coffee shops and whatever. Yep. But they all use what is called processors, right? They have a chain where the coffee is already like, they just like put it together, but coffee is already exists. It's extracted from beans. What if I actually show or do the entire grinding, extraction, and where these beans come from and how I prepare it? I'm not only serving a cup of coffee, I'm serving the style in which I am putting this coffee together. So I just pulled another I'm using the same analogy as hamburgers and pizza, just like Jessica Hyde did. But what I'm trying to say is, if somebody's not willing to grind those beans, if somebody's not willing to do the process and make this coffee the same way that I want to make it, why would I hire that person? Who would be the most ideal person for me to hire? Would it be somebody that I would that is willing to follow my lead or do things the way that I want to do things? Or would it be the person that insists to making the coffee like I am making, like it's in a Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, because it's easier and it's quicker, and for time efficient purposes, let's do it this way. So, right, what am I gonna bring? Am I gonna bring that person, or am I gonna bring somebody who insists in doing it the right way, their way, or analyzing it rather than go along with what my end goal is? And that is when this comes about. So we're gonna go into a very serious topic here, and I'm not gonna be making any accusations. And the reason why I'm not going to be making any accusations is because I am in the process of preparing letters that will go out to the U.S. office. Hold on. I'm going to go back and show you something. Hold on. Okay, I don't know if you guys remember, but back in 2024, Boston 25 released, and that they were letters that were exchanged between Michael Morrissey and the U.S. District Attorney's Office, right? And the goal of this letter was a back and forward sort of exchange of ideas where the 8 letters that are documented since May 2023, I believe, Morrissey was accused in the U.S. Attorney's Office of an unprecedented intervention and weaponization against a state murder case. The allegation, right, or the aim of this allegation was that the defense attorneys were arguing that this letter showed that Norfolk County District Attorney himself was pretty much the target of the federal investigation. And of course, Norfolk District Attorney's Office denied that allegation, right? So the Department of Justice sort of like pushed back, and it went on a back and forth letter. And at one point, the last letter, one of the last letters from Josh Levy, U.S. District Attorney Joshua Levy, indicated that they had a different opinion of the circumstances that John O'Keefe died from the opinions of Norfolk District Attorney. I know you guys remember that letter because it was often used as a thumbnail by a lot of people on X, and and everybody was talking about these letters when they finally came in. In one of the 2024 shows that I did at that time under another channel name and with somebody else, I'm sorry, excuse me, we read all of those letters. Now, after that, what happened was the audit findings, right, that was conducted by the Five Stones Intelligence whatever group. It was done in 2025, which explicitly they made an effort to make sure that it explicitly stated that there were no findings of evidence indicating any criminal conspiracy, tampering, or any of it. And that was also published by WCB News in Boston. And then, then the audit results were also shared, and everybody had a link to it, and everybody was scrutinizing it too. Now, despite of the fact that they were unsealed solo cups and the use of a blower, you gotta remember these are audits, right? But this is not like the office of the Inspector General going to audit somebody or a governmental office. This is an audit firm that is contracted, paid, outsourced, and compensated by the same people they're auditing. So you try to think about like where is the transparency somehow in that, right? How do we know that they're going to indicate that there were any negative findings or criminal manipulation or anything intentional when in regards to the same people, not only that they're auditing, but that is paying them. And I've heard, not sure if it's true, but this is alleged, and I heard that that was not the only contract. They did manage to get a contract to do the audit, but they also offer continued services down the line, and they managed to negotiate something where this company, these Five Stone people, were going to continue to provide support to the Canton PD Police Department. So, separate from this case, right, you have FTC and you have the OIG, which is the acronym for the Office of the Inspector General. There are letters that they're called letters of governmental fraud, right? And the Office of the Attorney General worked very closely in this case with Norfolk County district attorney. The way that I have read all of these documents and I understand it, Guarino played a key role in this case. I don't know if you notice that I'm pausing, and I'm trying to choose my words wisely. And Tully, Guarino reports to Tully. If we look at the organization chart, right? I'm going to see if I can flip one real quick. Hold on. Okay. So understanding that, right, when we work in any office, any company, somebody reports to somebody, right? Unless you're the owner and you own it. So when it comes to the forensic and anything that has to do with Norfolk County District Attorney, right? Michael Morris is the top honcho, and we know that he oversees the entire office. Adam Lally is just one of the lead prosecutors that he's got in his county. And we know that Hank Brennan was a special assistant district attorney who led the Commonwealth second trial against Karen Reed, right? Commonwealth and Karen Reed. Now, Hank Brennan was not a prosecutor for Norfolk District Attorney. We have no idea whether Hank Brennan was sought out, right? Recruited, interviewed, offered the job. Or if Hank Brennan knocked on the door of Norfolk County District Attorney and, I can sort of like play a possible conversation that I have played in my head plenty of times saying, well, hey, Michael, how are you doing these days? Good. I heard that you're having a tough time getting a district attorney, a lead prosecutor to prosecute Karen Reed. Oh yeah, well, I have experience with the FBI, right? I mean, haven't been involved with the Whitey Bulger situation. I mean, I was part of the defense team for Whitey Bulger. You know that. I mean, I have extensive information and experience dealing with the U.S. Department of Justice, right? I mean, I know how to navigate these people. These people are, everything is TUI this, TUI that. So, how possible is it that instead of somebody recruiting Hank Brennan to represent the Commonwealth at the second trial, Commonwealth against Karen Reed, is it possible that maybe it was Hank Brennan who offered to take over the case? I mean, anything is possible, right? If Ian Whiffen is saying that John is climbing stairs while the phone is riding inside a car at a time that it didn't happen, then anything is possible. So I have a feeling that all this time, we do not have clear how did that relationship work. And the reason why I bring that relationship is because I'm about to bring other relationships. If the typical organization chart of Norfolk County and the district attorney's office includes for people, MSP detectives who have been trained, right? Go to training, go to classes. They send them to different centers that they have alliance with to be trained and certified in forensic analysis of the phones, by the time that Jury Buchanan on January 31st, 2022, extracted John O'Keefe's phone, it had already been a year before Richard Green got involved. And he had not called Celebrite. And he had not reached out to Ian Whiffen. And Ian Whiffen only found out about the case because the only person who was doing his job was Richard Green. And Richard Green contacted Celebrite because that's what you do when you are a consultant and you are researching, you're covering all of your bases. And if you have to call here and there, look what happened to Michael Easter. When Michael Easter issued his report, which is included in all of the information that was shared, what did Michael Easter do? He researched what is the internal policy for the Massachusetts State Police when it comes to investigation, when it comes to showing up at a crime scene. What are the steps which should be in a chronological order that are supposed to be followed to secure anything related to that crime, any potential evidence, and be able to have a chain of, like a chain, right, of how that evidence exchanges hands and how does it go from the crime scene to the person who collected, how was it collected, where was it collected, where was it taken from there, and when and what time, and everything has to be done so methodical, because if you don't, then why are you there for? So if the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office has Guarino, has Dooley, has people that are supervisors of other people, right? And analysts and forensic digital whatever analysts that are supposed to report to other people, why are they working independently on their own without even making a call to Celebrite? But yet they end up hiring them, not to analyze anything, because they had already did the Great Cree extraction, right? They had already put it into context so it could be understood and understandable by other people. They took all the leverage away and converted it into PDF or Word, so there would be sequence on the call logs and the times and the clusters that they were trying to organize to make sure that everybody knew. So you have Michael Morrissey as a district attorney. I know that there's got to be more people under him, but Nicholas Guarino, Jury Buchanan, Brian Tooley, Proctor, all of them were under Michael Morrissey's umbrella. Now, did you know that the Attorney General's office in Massachusetts has a department, a directorship, if you will, of digital forensics? And they report to the MSP, the command staff, and the organization, within the MSP headquarters organization. Now, Guarino reports to Jury Buchanan, which is in MSP, but, assigned to Norfolk County, sort of, not anymore, but back then. Jury Buchanan reports to Tooley. Back then, he was a sergeant, and he comes from the same MSP organization assigned to Norfolk County, that unit that is called Norfolk. Now, Brian Tooley, despite of the fact that he is an MSP and he comes from that same Norfolk unit, he reports to Michael Morrissey. Why doesn't he report to Jeffrey Noble? Have you thought about that? But the conflict of interest here is that the director of the digital forensics at the AG's office also reports to the MSP command staff. but Brian Tooley doesn't? Who do you think Michael Morrissey reports to? He reports to the public. Or should report to the public. So, okay. I'm going to see if I can put this into context to let you guys know. But what I'm trying to say is that with everything that I have seen so far that was shared and the documentation that came public through the last FOIA dump, there's extensive emails and documentation that show that the first people that Guarino reached out to was not Celebrite, and it was not Jessica Hyde. Norfolk County District Attorneys reached out first, right, to their own people. They were analyzing and scrutinizing that evidence themselves. So all of these people that handle anything digital and forensic are typically linked to the National Computer Forensics Institute. They offer like free online training. They offer classes for state police that is linked to this or working on this. That's their jobs. It's part of their job description. They've been operating since 2008, if I'm not mistaken, and they are federally funded. Okay? You're gonna have to take some notes or come back to this because it's gonna get worse before it gets any better. So, sure. This institute, right? Guess where this institute is located? Let me see if I have anybody on the chat or anybody watching. It's Friday, so I don't blame anybody not for. Oh, hello, Renette. How are you? Let's say hi to you. How are things going? This institute is located, nonetheless, in Alabama. And you're probably saying, okay, Josie, so, there's places all over the place. Yeah, well, it will make sense in a minute. So by May 11th, well, actually, before I say that, don't forget that one of the first things that Guarino said was that John O'Keefe's phone extraction, whatever, they were not able to do that until like a year after, right? Well, wrong. They did that immediately. They did a great key extraction on January 31st, 2022. They needed to do that as quick as possible. And the reason why they needed to do that as quick as possible is because they had to get ahead of the game. Whatever they were able to find that could compromise the way that they were going to shape or define or mold the entire essence of the case, they needed to get ahead of the game. So by saying, well, we couldn't extract it by June 2023 because there was a software update and we were waiting on the software update. Bullshit. Nuh-uh. You extracted that phone immediately. Now, you didn't call Celebrite immediately, and you didn't call and contacted anybody else immediately. You were working among yourselves, internally working to define what the heck were you going to do specifically with this house loan to die in the cold, right? So the Massachusetts State Police has their people trained in this kind of things. Their analysis, right, produces reports regarding, what the data initially says, right? So if we put all this into context and I stop beating around the bushes and I just tell you what I think, I can tell you that the National Computer Forensics in Alabama, it's in Hoover, Alabama, is a federally funded facility, okay? It operates in partnership with the Alabama District Attorneys Association and the U.S. Secret Service. The NCFI, those are the acronyms for the National Computer Forensics Institute, provides training in digital evidence forensics to state and local prosecutors, judges, law enforcement, nationwide, using tools, and all of those tools are, hold on, achoo, I'm gonna sneeze. All of these tools are Magnet Forensics, Celebrate, and other companies. They're related. They're they're solutions for digital forensic analysis of phones or anything that has to do with digital forensics. So there's laboratories that are independent from this institute. There is a laboratory that is in Massachusetts. And that laboratory is at the Massachusetts Attorney General's office. Okay? Now, within that entity, there's experts. There are people that have been working there forever. There are people that you might as well call them gurus because they have been involved in anything that has to do with physical analyzers and the curriculum and magnet forensics, Celebrites. They're gurus. They're the big honchos in this stuff. And most of these gurus, specifically the ones who are actively involved with the National Institute of Forensics, whatever, are part also of the AGO's laboratory. So that would be the first place where I would go, right? If I was Guarino, to figure out what do I got here, right? I mean, the Attorney General's office has always been supportive of the Norfolk County, right? It's the same. The Attorney General's office is the same office where Kaylin Albert was nominated by Maura Healey. So late in May and in July, is when Ian Whipgrim, who works for Celebrite, right, shows up on first trial and second trial and starts. Celebrite also releases their, NCETH whatever, physical analyzer version 10.2.101.352, which is the same analyzer as the one that they were waiting on, right? The update on software. It removed the timestamp of the 2:27 a.m. Google search as an artifact itself. It was shortly after the first trial, even though Whiffin testified that it was before the first trial. But Whipcream petitioned internally to remove the last visited timestamp. That artifact, to be removed from the records that were sourced from the Safari's browser state history that showed up on January 29th, 2022. It was a request from Ian Whipcream. Now, by August 9th, Jessica Hamburger comes up with Exordia or whatever it's called. That's the name of her company. But it gets even better. These companies are supported by federal funding. Supported by federal funding. So I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to pull a Jessica Hyde here, right? If I have, my neighbors has a son, and my son is playing with her son. Something happens to her son, and she's been my neighbor for the last 27 years. But the person who inflicted pain to her son was not my son. It was another kid from across the street. Everything goes kaput. We go to trial, right? And they call me to testify on this case. Am I a neutral witness to what could have had provoked the kid from across the street to actually react to my next door neighbor's son, which I have been friends with for 25 years? I mean, if this case was happening in reality and I had to say, well, unfortunately, I've known them for 30 years or so and I love them to pieces, but it was her son who provoked the reaction from the kid from across the street. But do you think everybody does that? Do you think that there's no conflict of interest there? Because I've been a next door neighbor to my neighbor for over 30 whatever years, right? There is a conflict of interest when it comes to Ian Whipped Cream, Jessica Hyde, the federal funding that they have attained, how they were contracted, why they were contracted, and what was the purpose of their contract. There is a letter out there that I found which indicates that these people were contracted, outsourced, and amounts of money were allocated so they would support, not analyze, not research, not anything other than support Norfolk County's district attorney's Guarino's findings. And if you're wondering, why am I talking so low? Why am I so... As I am sharing this to you, I spent many years auditing. That was not my main role, but I was also pulled. We need to go audit. And most of those audits were unannounced. We didn't, let anybody know that we were going anywhere. And we would get on planes and we would pack a bag for 5-6 days. And sometimes we had to go end up at the Marine House or at a federal facility doing our laundry, because guess what? The audit is going to take a little longer than 3 to 4 days because of the findings. The easiest way sometimes to do the wrong thing, the easiest way to find that is following paper trail. And I'm sure you've heard follow the money. That's in specific cases. But paper trail, what happens first? The chronological order. Who called who? Did Richard Green initiate that call to the celebration company? Did the PR person and the intake of that call escalated and send it to Ian Whiffen? Did Ian Whiffen pick up the phone because he saw an opportunity to, secure a contract for his own company, and maybe even for Celebrate? But if we look at the report that it's available on the FOIA documents, it doesn't have the Celebrate logo on it. It doesn't look like it came from Celebrate. It looks like this could be Ian Whiffen's Whipped Cream's own company. Who did that report? I mean, if the rest of the paper is trailing that Celebrate was outsourced, specifically Ian Whiffen, did he come married and misrepresented? Did he come married or divorced? Did he misrepresented the fact that he was there in representation of Celebrite, or was he in trial because he was representing his own company? Because if that is the case, I understood, and I'm sure a lot of you understood, that Ian Whiffin Whipped Cream was sitting on that witness stand as a witness in representation of the company that he works for, which is what? Celebration, right? He never said that he was representing any other company other than the company that we believe was the one who updated the software to remove the artifact of 22740. But then, why is the report missing a header that indicates that this is a celebration report, right, from Celebrite? Why doesn't it have the Celebrite logo, right? So what would have happened if, and I'm going to go back and listen to, actually, you know what? I'm not going to lose any time because that's just not who I am. I'm a doer as much as I am a talker. So, okay, we'll see. Trial 1. That's not trial 1. No. You're tricking me. Where's my trial channel? Hold on. I had that one on cue because I had already this came as a this is a shocker to me, because while I was focused in the logs and debunking and discrediting that this is not what happened as far as the phone, as far as the times, this has taken precedent and priority, because if in fact Ian Whiffin was not in trial testifying as a representative of the company that he said that he works with, and he was a representative of his own company, that's not what the jury understood. The jurors understood he was there representing Celebrite. So just like Richard Griffin was there representing his own company, if in true Ian Whipped Cream was there representing his own company, and he happens to work in Celebrite, and who happened to be involved in the software changes updating that removed the Celebrite artifact of the extraction of the 22740 house loans die in the cold, that's a different story, man. That's a whole different story. So I think I found it. No. Don't tell me that they remove these things, because if they remove the trial 1 crap, I'm going to lose it. Hold on. Yeah, that's it.
Last name for the jury. Yes, it's Ian Whiffin. So IAN WHIFFIN.
And what is it that you do for work, sir?
I'm currently the decoding product manager at Celebrite.
And what is Celebrite?
Celebrite is one of the world leaders in mobile forensics software.
And when you say forensic software, can you explain to the jury a little bit about sort of what is forensic software and how is it used, specifically your Celebrite?
Yeah, so forensic software is used to gain access to people's devices, cell phones primarily, to extract that data and to allow examiners to parse and decode that data to make sense of it in a more user-friendly way so that a report can be created for investigators.
Now, sir, if I could ask you just a few questions going back to some of your educational and prior work experience starting sort of with your undergraduate work, what, if any, where did you go to school and what, if any, degree did you receive there?
Okay, I didn't get a degree. I'm originally from the UK, where I did qualifications in computing, a higher national certificate in computing, and then joined the police in 2004.
And what department was that, sir?
That was response work, so South Yorkshire Police as a response officer.
And where did you go from there?
In 2009, I immigrated to Canada, where I was able to continue policing with the Calgary Police Service, where I spent approximately 4 or 5 years, again, working patrol before moving to the digital forensics team of Calgary Police.
And with respect to moving to that digital forensics team, what, if any, specialized training did you receive in regard to that area?
So once I had made it into the digital forensics, I was sent to Ottawa for 3 weeks to do a foundational computer forensics course, covering all manner of digital forensics to begin with. Throughout my 8 years with Calgary Police, I did constant courses each year to keep information updated, including a 2-week course, again, at the Canadian Police College in Ottawa, specifically about cell phone forensics. And then also during that time, additional courses for extracting data for interpreting internet artifacts or any other kind of information found on a phone or computer.
And following that, where did you go from there, sir?
In 2020, I left Calgary Police Service and began working at Cellbrite as the senior digital intelligence expert, where I would use my knowledge of the forensic community to assist the developers with creating and maintaining a program that examiners would want to use. Finally, about 2 years ago, I moved to the decoding product manager position.
And can you explain to the jury sort of what it is, what your role is, and what is it that you do for Cellbrite?
Yep, so right now in the position that I'm in, again, I use my knowledge of the digital forensics landscape in the community. I talk with users about their daily challenges, what applications are causing them problems, what they need to get access to, what they need to understand. And I take that information, create a priority list, and then determine with our developers what we will tackle, how we will tackle it, and how it will appear to the end user.
Now, with regard to your education in this area, what, if any, certifications do you have?
No specific certifications. I've done the Cellbrite coursework since joining Cellbrite, but other than the 3-week course in Ottawa, and then again the 2-week course in Ottawa, I don't have the SANS training or any of that kind of training certifications.
And in addition to your work with Cellbrite, what, if any, other areas of the field have you worked?
I'm sorry, could you rephrase that?
Sure. Have you given any presentations? Have you published any work in relation to this area?
Yes. So since working as an examiner, I identified that there were times that I needed to parse artifacts from applications that the main vendors didn't support. In response to that, I would do my own research. That research turned into a selection of digital forensics tools, and I created a website for myself to share that research, to share those tools with the community. And directly related to that, I have published articles related to accessing data on phones, related to SQL databases, related to various other artifacts, primarily locations.
Now, over the course of your work, have you had occasion to testify in other courts in relation to this specific field? Yes,
related to digital forensics, I've testified approximately 20 times. Mainly in Canada, but also once in Michigan, once in Australia, once in the UK.
Now, as far as questions that come into your company with relation to interpretation of data, other sort of general forensic questions, what parts of the world do these questions come in from, and how widely used is your product?
So the product is used globally. There are a select number of countries that we don't export to, but generally, if a police service is interested in digital forensics, then they're using at least some of our tools. We operate an email address which is open to any user called Stumpers. And the idea is that users, if they come across an artifact that they can't explain, they can email to myself and some of my colleagues, and we can research that artifact, and we can try and give them an answer as to say why the artifact's there and how it should be interpreted.
You used the term in there as far as an artifact. If you could please explain to the jury sort of what your understanding of that term is and how it's used within your specific industry.
Yeah, so I would refer to an artifact as essentially any piece of data which I've recovered from the phone, which is of interest. It could be a web history visit. It could be a text message. It could be a photograph, any piece of information.
Now, sir, turning your attention to September of 2023, at some point in that month, were you contacted by the Norfolk District Attorney's Office and the State Police in regards to this case?
Eventually, yes. Initially, I was contacted by a member of Cellbrite.
And if you know why was that initial, as far as the initial contact and initial request from Cellbrite, can you speak about that?
My understanding was there was an artifact found on a device, and people were looking for an explanation as to how this particular timestamp was relevant to the case.
Now, if you could explain to the jury sort of what were you provided and what were you asked to look at?
So the original question is just basically how can we explain this 227 timestamp? I spoke to my colleague and requested if he could contact the investigators and any information that they could share about where this particular timestamp was found so that I could investigate it. I was advised at that time that the case had already been uploaded to our own support network. So the full extraction of the device in question was already in Cellbrite's possession. And I was able to access it from there and start to examine what the issue was that was causing the confusion.
Now, with reference to this issue, can you describe to the jury, just in general terms, sort of what this issue was?
Yeah, so the issue, as I was led to believe, is there was a timestamp for a web history artifact of 2:27 and 40 seconds AM local time, which would be UTC-5, and it didn't make sense to the investigators. And the question was, is there any other interpretation for what this timestamp could mean?
And so essentially you were asked to explain the timestamp and how it came to be, correct?
Correct.
And as far as this particular issue, has this arisen in other instances? Have you been asked the same question or similar questions in regard to this type of artifact?
Yeah, several weeks later, so probably around December time last year, I was contacted by a police investigator in Austria with a very similar question, but related to obviously a different internet search. And about a week later, the defense expert in the same case also contacted me asking the same question. The defense expert in that case was able to provide the database, and I was able to provide the answer.
Now, as far as the full extraction, is that the entirety of what you looked at in this instance, or what, if anything else, were you provided with in regard to your review and your analysis in this case?
So I did work with the full extraction, but my interest was focused on just the web history artifacts.
Really? Can you guys see that? Can you guys see this? I need to, hold on. Heights first reports indicated that she used Celebrite Axiom and other tools. Yeah. And NCDL. Well, how can we explain that? Yeah, I agree. But this is my take based on. So I think the entire conflict of this lies on the fact that the entire artifact, right? The 22740 of January 29th, that was initially identified as a Google search, House Loan to Die in the Cold, with the exact 22740 timestamp of January 29th, 2022. At some point, even Ian Whiffen is asked, do you understand the implications if there was confirmation that the 22740 a.m. timestamp was legit, existed, and removed? Do you understand the implications of having that 22740 a.m. search be validated that yes, it happened, yes, it occurred at 22740, and before the judge somebody said objection and she tried to whatever, he had already answered yes. So here's the conflict, okay? Because this is the entire this document provides technical information regarding the digital forensic analysis of House Loan to Die in the Cold, that Google search. But it also highlights to us, to whoever is able to understand this document, that there is a critical disagreement, right? Sort of like a push between the forensic experts, the software manufacturer, right? Celebration people, regarding the timestamp on that search. Now, that document that I'm showing, that I'm sharing with you guys, right, from Celebrite, the actual software company, initially believed, listen to me, they initially believed that the artifact was reliable, legitimate, it existed. But by July, Celebration Company, based on Ian Whiffen's request, right, updated their software, which ended up removing the 227 timestamp. Now it indicates that it's indicating almost like if it's no longer considered reliable, it's not an indicator that is legit, that the search actually occurred at 227 timestamp. But prior to July 2024, it did. So if Ian Whiffen contacts you guys, this is I guess I don't this is really big, you guys, and I'm even struggling with the fact, not because I don't want to share it, I'm struggling with the fact that I want to do it in the most efficient way possible for several reasons, right? I don't think I am debunking this or far from the first one who points this out. But perhaps I am the one that is going to show a chronological order of events that is going to explain and justify why Celebrite consider it reliable and legitimate, but then Ian Whiffen sent in a request forcing a software update, forcing that it was marked as a deleted record with an adjusted view right? Using UTC -5, which I don't know if you guys know, but when the time changes, it's UTC -4 because of the time change, because of the daylight savings. At any other time, it's UTC -5 that we come to Eastern time, like in the Massachusetts area, to actually account for that 2:27:40 a.m. surge. So it says noting the inconsistencies, and I don't know whether you can, haha, one click, one hand, I'm good. Noting the inconsistencies in Celebrite's reporting between UFED report generated by VC 0.53.0.29 and Celebrite's physical analyzer, which is the V as in Victor 7.61.0.12. It says, I contacted Celebrite's technical support to inquire if they could provide additional information about this artifact. Celebrite's technical support staff indicated that they believed the artifact was reliable and that no issues had been brought up to their attention. This is on April. This is early on, right? On April 2022-2024, the Commonwealth Now expert, Ian Whiffing. Why do you think that happened? Because he said he reached out to law enforcement. That's what he was. He was part of the Canada Calgary law enforcement. He was given a heads up by the intaker of Celebrite, who took the call and the inquiry from Richard Green. And that person escalated it to the proper channel because at that time he was a product manager. Let me tell you something. I would have cut this by the nuts if I would have been part of either Celebrite or part of the Norfolk County District Attorney or part of the Attorney General's office or part of any institution with a niche of integrity. Anyone who has been, I don't know, in a position of relevance, right? And has 2 inches of a brain, and maybe even those who don't, could have seen the conflict of interest, the deviation, the manipulation, and what happened in a court just by reading a few separate documentation following what happened, what and when, and the dates that are all mingled and convoluted in between the entire thing. This trial should have never happened. We have spent so much money and continue to spend because Jessica Hyde was just awarded another grant, federal grant. At this point, I'm not sure whether it's to keeping her shot or happy or under the belt, right? Because she became pretty handy, in my opinion. So did Ian Whiffin. Very handy, in my opinion. I wish this is extremely alarming for so many reasons that I have not even started to explain. But it is very alarming because I'm trying, hold on, be patient with me with this mouse situation. Okay, I'm going to leave it right there. I contacted Celebrite technical support to inquire if they could provide additional information about this artifact. Celebrite technical support staff indicated that they believe the artifact was reliable, that no issues had been brought to their attention. On April 22, 2024, the Commonwealth expert, Ian Whipgrim, emailed me stating that the last visited time shown in PA will be getting removed from the artifact in the next available version of Physical Analyzer 7.69-/10.2.1. After the trial, in this case, in late May 2024, Celebrite released Insights, which is a physical analyzer, VS and Victor 10.2.101.352. And that release, that update of that physical analyzer was the one that removed the 227 timestamp from its processing artifact shortly after the trial. The trial of July 22nd, 2024. Celebrite released its physical analyzer standard VS and Victor V7.69.0.10, which also removed the 2:27 a.m. timestamp from its processing of the artifact. Notably, Celebrite is a company that markets itself as providing digital intelligence solutions for law enforcement and is used by over 6,900 public safety agencies in over 100 countries worldwide. Although I am aware that Celebrite recently changed its analyzer programs, so it's no longer showing right on the reports of the timestamp, this particular artifact, and it says, I have not misinterpreted the data. And it comes to the site. Once it's changed. In other words, it wasn't any longer considered reliable after the software was updated, just like Ian Weaving said that it would not show after the new update would be released, and the software would update on the Celebrite end. And the problem that we see is that an issue was identified because the last visited timestamp in Safari at browserstate.db was being incorrectly reported. Now, the fix was that Celebrite determined that this specific database is not a reliable timestamp for an URL shown. But the implication of this is that by Celebrite determining that, it was supporting the prosecution's argument that the 2:27 a.m. artifact search for House Long to Die in the Cold was merely a forensic error that was generated by the software or the user, rather than the fact that the actual words were typed at 2:27 and then the actual time the search was typed. So this is a forensic, a lot of people call it pivot point. It's a pivot point because while we have objectively sort of tracked down the 12/24 cessation of Jones movement, The document that you see on the screen shows counter evidence regarding the Google search. It's suggesting that while the health and the battery data at 72 degrees favors that my theory that the fact that there was a separation between John's phone and John, the most famous digital evidence at the same time in this case, which is the 227 search, was debunked by the software manufacturer itself. So I don't know why. I have an idea why Ian Whipcream took it upon himself to make every effort that he could to upgrade that physical analyzer software within the Celebrite core company software used by the company. In the middle of all of this, I recently noticed that how this company actually markets themselves. The market is law enforcement. They provide solutions for law enforcement, which, I mean, a good citizen with a good law enforcement organization should not have any issues when it comes to that, right? But they could change that pitch to they provide solutions as far as forensic digital expertise, right? That covers a wider range because it wouldn't only be law enforcement looking for them, it would also be lawyers, it could be the public, it could be schools, it could be universities, it could be higher education facilities, it could be, I don't know, MIT, it could be, to have them come over and do a seminar and whatever, right? But they are exclusively marketing themselves as providing solutions for law enforcement. While he was arguing that the 227 timestamp was a glitch caused by Safari and, handling a lot of tabs at the same time, when you open the search, the 623 search on the iPhone database, it actually associates it with the last search and the last tab visited hours earlier, which, what do you think that one is? It's the 22740. How Slow to Die in the Cold. If we look at magnet forensics like Axiom and the other companies, because I have done a little bit of research on that too, nothing changed on their end. It still exists. It still shows it as a reliable and legitimate artifact. the only company who removed it by launching a software update that would cause the removal of the artifact was Celebrite. So I'm going to read this again. I'm going to read just 2 lines again. I contacted Celebrite's technical support to inquire if they could provide additional information about this artifact. Celebrite's technical support staff indicated that they believed the artifact was reliable and that no issues had been brought to their attention. On April 22nd, 2024, the Commonwealth's expert Ian Whiffen emailed me stating the last visited time shown in PA, which is the physical analyzer, will be getting removed. So we have documentation from Ian Whiffen stating that on an email that the last visited timestamp shown on the physical analyzer will be getting removed from the artifact in the next available version of the physical analyzer 7.69/10.2.1. And after the start of the trial regarding Commonwealth versus Karen Reed in late May 2024, Cellebrite released the update on the physical analyzer, and it removed the 227 timestamp. So when you see him sitting here confidently testifying, the first question that I have is he testifying on behalf of and representing Cellebrite, or is he testifying per his report, which comes from an independent company that has nothing to do with Cellebrite, but yet used Cellebrite's findings, especially after April 2024, causing the removal of the 22740 timestamp. I'm going to throw another thing. Ian Whiffen is not doing this by himself. I don't care whether he's sitting there representing Cellebrite or he's sitting there representing whoever it is that he's representing. He's not doing this by himself. He is incapable of doing this by himself. He was hired to support Guarino's theory. Guarino reports to Tully. Tully reports to Michael Morrissey. And Michael Morrissey is what? Has way too many standing IOUs with the Alberts and the McAlberts family. Potentially related through the Riordan family. Jen McTooth shows on a family reunion, a Morrissey family reunion, front and center, laughing with all of her teeth out. Or should I say teeth? Really?
And what, if anything, did you find with regard to the web history article?
So the 22740 timestamp was correct insofar as that is the time that is shown within the database. It was indeed a deleted record, but the interesting thing was why the timestamp said 22740. And I did some testing on this and discovered the reason.
Yes, I know that. I know that initially, Jessica Heights, the first report that she did say that she used Cellebrite and Axiom and other tools and other physical analyzers, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, she dropped everything on the second report. And I saw not only her report, but I also watched Hank Brennan scrutinized Jessica Hyde back and forth, despite of the sandwiches and the hamburgers that she made analogies of. And she did say that she was only using Celebrite on that report, on the last report that she said. So I still have something to tell you. It's just that I'm trying to ease the information that I am sharing with you guys. Because if it was difficult for me, if it's been difficult for a lot of people, and in many ways, the impotency, right? Because we see this, you see it, we can read the report, we can see Whiffing saying himself that it will be removed. He sent an email stating that it will no longer exist after 5/23. Yep. You know what? I remember those dates, but I don't have them handy. So thank you for sharing, because I'm about to. Okay, wait. I'm gonna be left-handed soon. 9/23 weaving. Well, I have the contracts. I have their contracts. I have the information that indicates what time were they outsourced and when their contracts actually started. And yeah, Hank objected too late because he had already said yes. And he said that he understood what the implications were. And the implications were that that trial was going to go full stop. Karen Reed was going to be automatically acquitted, gotten up from that chair, and get out of there. And whatever Jen McCabe and everybody else was going to be held in whatever. And it was going to be it would be a whole show if that would have happened. But among the technicality, the accents and the French and all the other shit, they allowed this to go on for a reason, or just to continue to cover it up. Which one is it? Because if it's for a reason, I understand it. But by now, that reason, it's already obsolete because something should have happened. If this was all allowed to identify, which is, and I'm going to do this. Yeah, I'm going to do it in a minute. If this was allowed to identify all the tentacles of this damn octopus, right? Then it should be obsolete by now. Because we're in 2026 and we're still waiting. Yep. Yeah, I didn't know, like, that came to mind the other day because I was watching Melanie Little, and there was a question about the UTC and people were trying to figure it out. And I try to put a note, which I normally don't, but if I see something that I can contribute, I try to put a line or two. And I put a note. If it's daylight savings, it's UTC -4. So a lot of people don't sort of like, they start calculating the minute that they see it because they know that it's -5. But if we are talking about December, January, and it's before March or April, and the time hasn't changed, and you want to find out what the Eastern time equivalent is, you need to do -4 because -5 is going to throw you out. So, or off. Oh, she did? Josie, she was a Yoshi. She was probably Carmel. That sounds Oriental. Japanese, maybe? Hold on. That sounds Japanese. Been in Japan twice. That's a very common name, but Carmel, I'm going to look her up. She stepped down December 31st. Wow, what are the freaking odds? After 20 years. Wow. Well, 20 years, you're already betted, right? It depends how old she was. I mean, some people retired way before they reached the age limit, but they already have 20, 21, 22 years in. And that happens to a lot of people. And, you're stupid if you don't take it, because it's like, yeah, you're able to retire, even if you have to wait until you get to retirement age to get all of your annuities or whatever it is, whatever the situation may be, because there's a difference, depending on who we work with and where. But yeah, that's what I did. So I would take it, but it doesn't, she doesn't strike me as, how old is she? She doesn't strike me as being that old. Let me see. Josie Carmille, ex CEO. Age, retirement, December. Let me see what I get. Just started a search there, but yep, officially stepped down as CEO Celebrite on December 31st, 2024, following a leadership transition announced in November that year. His departure, is a he, was framed as a voluntary retirement after nearly 20 years leading the company. In public statements, Carmille cited a mix of success, exhaustion, and the desire to step away from the race as factors of his decision. While his exact date of birth is not publicly disclosed in corporate filings, he stated in early 2025 that he was approaching his 60. Okay, well then it makes sense. What do you do? Everybody's different, so that doesn't alarm me. But he could have been already planning on moving out. But following his exit, Thomas Hogan, then the company executive chairman, assumed the role of interim CEO starting January 1st, 2025. So that's interesting. That's pretty interesting. I'm going to go back to that. You see why it's like it's impossible to stop? Because it's just, we turn the face 2 seconds and something else comes up.
And why 22740 was actually listed in the database, even though that's not the time, in my opinion, that the search was conducted.
And
you were paid within, weren't you? And I'm not talking outsourced contract. I'm talking Jesus. You were bought.
what is your opinion as to when the search was conducted?
There's plenty of other evidence on that extraction that shows what activity was occurring at 2:27:40 seconds. And there's plenty of evidence later on in the day that shows that that particular search was conducted at 6:23, I believe 51 seconds, and then a similar search at 6:24 and 18 seconds, I believe.
And before we get to that,
Yeah, because it's a conflict of interest. Yeah, it's a conflict of interest. You can't. You gotta separate. Totally agree.
Quick, and I'm showing you the document.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do you recognize that, sir?
I do, yes.
What do you recognize that?
Yeah.
This was the internet history, the history.db database table showing activity from the morning of the 29th of January 2022.
You're talking about the last awarded contract, the last grant, or the last money that she was, wait, let me look something. Yeah, in 2025, if I'm not mistaken, right? Lawsuit was filed a month before. Yeah, this was recent, but she has another one. There's another one that I have paperwork on that came on the what do you call it? that came related to all the FOIA dump documentation, and that happened in 2025 after the trial ended. So I don't know if you remember, but in the beginning, when she was contacted, because either she and Wifi knew each other, somebody referred one to one another, I'm not sure, but what I'm trying to say is somehow these two kids came into play, right? And I know that we've been contacted Norfolk County investigators, because he says that on his testimony. I don't know whether it slipped or what, but he did contact Guarino and he spoke to Guarino, and perhaps he offered services. But what I'm trying to say is contemporary, I mean, at the same time, he was also launching and promoting his own company. Remember, he had a blog. He had a blog that he used to get people to peer review. I want to know if Jessica Hyde was one of the people that was peer reviewing the work of Ian Whiffing, and perhaps that's how they became to know each other. Because you have Jessica Hyde, who is typically in Maryland, in the Maryland area, right? And you have this guy that comes from the UK, ends up in Canada, and then somehow is with Celebrite now. So how did these two meet? Now, in an industry, right? Most of the people that work in the same industry, we bump heads at the same time. You get to meet a lot of people. There's a lot of conferences that you attend, and by peer reviewing documentations and being sort of like in an attempt to try to stay abreast of everything that's happening and all the changes that are happening, you end up meeting a lot of people. I'm trying to figure out, how did these two people meet? If Jessica Hyde was one of the people who was peer reviewing, hold on, let me see. I want to know, how did they meet? I also want to know, how much was it that they were paid up around April or February, March, April, right before the trial in 2023? How much was the contract for Ian Whiffin through Norfolk County? I need to know whether that contract was awarded to Celebrite, or was it awarded to Ian Whiffin's company. I have some evidence of that. I already found some information of that, and on Jessica Hyde's too, to include the recent money that has been allocated, funded, and put aside for them. But I need to organize it. I need to put it into context, and I need to do my thing, because before I come in, so I can go and let you guys all know, I have a feeling that this institute in Alabama, which should be an institute that they all know where it is, what happens there. And I'm sure, I don't know whether they have attended any seminars or classes or trainings that have been conducted at the Hoover Alabama Center, but that institute is very well known by anybody that is in the digital forensic community. You call MIT and you ask if they have anything, any credibilities or any references or anybody that works in that institute, and they will attest that that is one of the trailblazing centers to train and make people that are in that industry competent in everything that is coming out, new updates, findings about digital forensics. So I have a lot of work to do still, and I'm going to continue to put things together. But I know that there are individuals that there's more people. I don't know if you heard, but I said the other day, from the original 11, I'm already down to 4, but I ended up adding 2 others. And the 2 other people that I'm adding are not necessarily participants of a fight or intercepting anybody or ambushing anybody, but those people, by logic, they had to be present. The fact that I don't have their phone instructions or their location doesn't mean that logic is not going to win at the end of the day. If we were to find any further information that attests that they were, because it is impossible that they were not. Well, just like that, in this case, there's got to be other people. Ian Whiffin cannot secure $1 million, neither Jessica Hyde, contracts by themselves, right? There's got to be links on this chain. And we're going to find out. Little by little, we're going to find out what the heck is going on here, because look, if I would have been active in the job that I held since shy of 18, which I was offered a contract because they couldn't directly hire me because I was still not 18 years old. So they offered me a contract the months leading to my 18th birthday to start working until I turned 18. If I had any of the jobs that I held for almost 22 years, I would have been having a heart attack right now with this, because this did not happen on anybody's watch that I knew of, that I worked with the level of integrity and honesty that all of those people, the majority of those people, the ones who trained me, the ones who started supervising me early on, the ones that I started working with, collaborating with, and then the ones that I started supervising myself, the level of integrity in which we used to operate, work, and be vigilant of the best interest of the United States of America, our government, our country, our money, our billions of dollars. This would have given me a heart attack. A heart attack. Going back to Weefing here for 2 more minutes until I hear something.
Yes.
Your Honor, if I may, with the court permission, can we publish it in the record?
Yes.
Hold on.
Or may I approach this retrieve?
Yes.
This is something.
No, it's my fault.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Whiffen, do you recognize what's up on the screen now as the exhibit you have before you?
I do, yes.
And Mr. Whiffen, there should be a laser pointer on the desk next to you. What I'm going to ask you to do is, if you could, using that laser pointer, explain to the jury what we're looking at in this exhibit and what, if anything, of significance you observe within this exhibit.
Okay, of course. So this was a table I created based on the data from the phone. The first column shows the local time of a record that was written to the history database. This is a database which is tracking all web pages which are loaded as you use them. The second column starts with the URL, so the Uniform Resource Locator, so what you would type in or how the browser knows which website you want to visit. The title is part of the website which is loaded. One of the top attributes of the website will load the title. Visit count relates to an internal counter within Safari, which just tracks how many times a particular website is visited in order to make suggestions to you down the road. And then finally, the last column shows the source of this information. So history.db is the name of the database. History_visits is the name of the table. And then the number is the unique identifier which is assigned to that particular record in consecutive order. So every time you add a new record, that number will increase by 1.
And Mr. Whippy, probably a couple of foundational questions that I should have asked you first. My apologies. With respect to the cell phone extraction that you were provided, that was from a individual named Jennifer McCabe, is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
And fair to say you don't know Jennifer McCabe, never met her, don't know anything about her?
Correct.
And as far as a extraction is concerned, if you could please explain to the jury sort of what your understanding of that is. What is an extraction?
An extraction in this case, all of the files and folders had been extracted from the device, saved on a computer in a zip file container. So essentially in a way that is as close to the original from the device as possible.
And again, what is your title specifically with Cellbrite?
It's decoding product manager at the moment.
And so what, if any, relation does what you do have with relation to an extraction, and how that's, what's sort of the relationship between what you do and a Cellbrite extraction?
So once the extraction's been extracted and we have the zip file, then Physical Analyzer is the tool that Cellbrite creates to allow examiners to look at that extracted data in a meaningful way. And my role is somewhat shaping how examiners will see that data when they open up Physical Analyzer and look at the extracted data.
And how does your role play into that? What is it that you do that what, if any, relationship does what you do have to do with how examiners will view something from a Cellbrite tool?
Again, so after being an examiner for 10 or 11 years, I've got that kind of understanding of how examiners work. Being someone who also writes my own software and does my own research, then I can kind of cross that void that usually exists between developers and examiners and help both parties try to come to a meaningful conclusion.
Ms. Gilman, if you could shrink that just a little, or zoom out a little. Now, again, Mr. Whiffen, if you could, using that laser pointer, direct the jury's attention to what, if anything, is significant you observed depicted in this particular case.
Yeah, so the lower two records, which are highlighted in green, are two records which occurred at 2:27 and 42 seconds local time. So 2 seconds after the Google search had allegedly been made. And then the second record is 5 seconds after that at 2:27, 47 seconds. Both those URLs relate to a website of hokamocksports.com.
Now, if you could explain to the jury, what is a contiguous identifier?
So again, every SQLite database will assign a unique contiguous identifier number. So again, the very first record created will be given a record ID of 1, the second record will be 2, and so on and so forth. Those numbers are never reused. So if I was to delete record 3, that record number will never be reused, and I can see that there's a gap and deleted data in that database.
You used another term in there as far as a SQLite database. If you could explain to the jury what your understanding of that term is based on your training experience.
Yeah, a SQLite database, essentially, it's a series of tables. It's a way for data to be stored, again, in a meaningful, organized fashion that can be queried, can be examined, can be filtered, searched, etc. It can be useful for anybody who wants to get data from an organized file.
Now, with reference to the searches that you observed within this particular web history, what, if any, relationship did the contiguous identifiers, sort of the range, what if anything, did that tell you?
I'm sorry, can you rephrase that?
What, if any, observations did you make as far as those contiguous identifiers in the range they had in relation to the web history that you observed?
Okay, so within the history.db file, there were no missing numbers from the beginning of January, essentially, until early February. That told me as an examiner that no records had been deleted during that time.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
That's not accurate.
delete record 3, that record, yeah, so the lower two records, which are highlighted in green, are two records which occurred at 2:27 and 42 seconds local time. So 2 seconds after the Google search had allegedly been made. And then the second record is 5 seconds after that at 2:27, 47 seconds. Both those URLs relate to a website of hock'emmucksports.com.
Now, if you could explain to the jury, what is a contiguous identifier?
So again, every SQLite database will assign a unique contiguous identifier number. So again, the very first record created will be given a record ID of 1, the second record will be 2, and so on and so forth. Those numbers are never reused. So if I was to delete record 3, that record number will never be reused, and I can see that there's a gap and deleted data in that database.
You used another term in there as far as a SQLite database. If you could explain to the jury what your understanding of that term is based on your training.
Yeah, a SQLite database, essentially, it's a series of tables. It's a way for data to be stored, again, in a meaningful, organized fashion that can be queried, can be examined, can be filtered, searched, etc. It can be useful for anybody who wants to get data from an organized file.
Now, with reference to the searches that you observed within this particular web history, what, if any, relationship did the contiguous identifiers, sort of the range, what if anything, did that tell you?
I'm sorry, can you rephrase that?
What, if any, observations did you make as far as those contiguous identifiers in the range they had in relation to the web history that you observed?
Okay, so within the history.db file, there were no missing numbers from the beginning of January, essentially, until early February. That told me as an examiner that no records had been deleted during that time.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
So if I could ask.
That one back.
Everyone
Thank you.
recognize that, sir?
I do, yes.
What do you recognize that?
This is the browser state record, which identified a search at 2:27:40 a.m.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Almost. We have no objection.
Okay. Thank you.
May I return to the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
For permission, may we publish it to the jury?
Yes.
Counselor, directing your attention to the screen, is that what you have before you as the next exhibit?
It is, yes.
And if you could explain to the jury what we're looking at in this exhibit and what, if any, information you're able to sort of glean as a forensic examiner with relation.
Okay, so this is a searched item exhibit. It's technically a derivative of a different exhibit that we find on the device. So we found what we consider a web history record. So a web history record would just mean we have a URL that was visited and potentially a timestamp and a title. Searched items looks at all of the web history items that we've found and tries to identify were these actually searches that were conducted. So for example, if you were to do a search on Google, you'd see that the website that you're taken to is google.com query, then it contains the query string that you've typed in. We extract that information, we extract that query and provide it to the user as a searched item. In this case, I can see that it came from the browser state.db WAL file. The search query itself was host long to dying cold, and it shows as a deleted record.
Now, with respect, I think you've used a couple of different terms within that as far as a knowledge C database. Can you explain to the jury what that is?
I don't recall saying knowledge C, but I can explain what knowledge C is in this case. Yes, the knowledge C database is at the heart of iOS. It stores lots of information about the activity on the device at any given time. Things like when the backlight's turned on, when the device is unlocked, what application is in focus at the time and how long it's in focus for. And important to this case, which website's on screen at any given time as well.
When you say when a website is in focus, can you expound upon that as far as what exactly do you mean by when you say in focus?
So in terms of iOS itself, when it's in focus, it would be the primary item that's visible on screen. So with iOS, you can have applications in the background that you aren't using, but the one that you are currently using is considered in focus, taking up the entire screen.
I believe you had used the term as far as a browser
Hey,
CD, is that correct?
Correct.
And can you explain to the jury what your understanding of that term is and how it relates to it?
Browser State DB is just the name of the database, the name that Apple gave it. It's gone through some changes over the last few years. For example, in iOS 14, it did store the state of the tabs that were open within a browser. In iOS 15, there was a significant change. And the only time that records were written to the database is when the tab was closed. So significant.
Not necessarily, because there's the WAL file, right? Which is the write ahead logging. So when you start, it sort of like creates a record just in case you go back to it, right? That was safe there, which in this case is also another smoking gun, right? When you write something, before you even commit it to a search or the main database, it's saved by their write-ahead logging. It suggests that the 227 search was not a glitch within. It was physically typed in and later deleted. And there's relevance in summarizing all of this crap because it's a full circle conflict. Oh my God. Between the prosecution, the investigators, the software manufacturer, and you're performing at least 3-4 roles. You're the product manager, the person who Richard Green was supposed to be in contact with, but you were also the person who contacted law enforcement in Norfolk County. And then you're the person getting involved, right? Having your own company and trying to launch a software upgrade that erases the thing. And then you're also volunteering, right, your company to support Norfolk County District Attorney. And then you're also getting paid for it, securing contracts for your company for Jessica Hyde. And here you are also testifying. Well, Jesus, it's like, talk about the chef, the cook, and the dishwasher guy. So there is an issue here. There's an issue. This shouldn't happen. So this is not a neutral analysis. You were hired as an outside idiot to provide expert support to an existing finding of the trooper that works for Norfolk County that wanted to get that 22740 search disappear. So how can you be a prosecution witness when you are a high-level employee at Cellebrite and you're the one who developed the software and you're securing contracts? And even the report that you produced doesn't even have the Cellebrite logo on it. We shouldn't have even finished trial 1 if anybody would have done their auditing job in regards to this. Because this is the smoking gun. What about the federal reward, huh? And the timing on Jessica Hyde's and Exordia or whatever it's called, that federal grant contract. Not only not even after her little involvement, adding layers to a case. This is very suspicious, man. I'm not sure what to tell you, but this is very suspicious. So What about this TAIN team? Where is this TAIN team at? I want to know. I'm going to get my hands on the December 15th, 2023 email, which confirms that Nick Guarino, who reports, right, to Brian Tooley, who's now disciplined, by the way, met with the Attorney General's office TAIN team to review the whole thing. But do you remember that the Attorney General's office is the same Attorney General's office who nominated Caitlin Albert to the Attorney General's office in March 2022? As a, hey, bro, I got your back, bro, to Brian Albert. And then Caitlin Albert started working at the Attorney General's office in September 2022. Wow. Isn't it like TAIN team supposed to be like a clean unit type of thing that, you know, you ensure that the data is not like, you know, compromised or tampered with, or, you know what? This is just everything I see it from a government point of view, because that's where my background is. Everything I see it from an Office of Inspector General point of view. And the forensic integrity of this case has been just dismantled, because all you see is almost like a paper trail, digitally coordinated effort between NCDAO people, Celebrite people, and even the TAIN team. If I get a hold of that email and can attest to it, I'm waiting for it. They're allowing the prosecution witness Whiffing to internally petition his employer to put a patch on a 227 stamp during a murder trial. No wonder why, you know, he's not only did he win. Oh my God, this is fundamentally altered. A company within an industry, their tool, their forensic tool to suppress evidence. You know what they used to call this in my days? In my OIG days, in my federal government days, this was known as governmental fraud, manipulation. That's what this is called. I don't know what it's called now. But in my eyes, in my opinion, this is just sickening. Here it is. I got an email. Hold on. I may have gotten what I need. Again, I'm talking fraud. I'm talking everybody in the government position was in cahoots and recruited, hired, and whipped cream to do their thing and support these people. I'm saying that if this is the case, this should have been stopped immediately. Oh, I gotta send an email to Alan Jackson. Who am I? Who? Oh my God. I don't, you know, it's the same thing all over again. Like when we found Kevin Albert, I was like, and now what? What do I do? So now I'm going to have to do the same thing, because it's like, I can contact my government buddies, but it's like, you know, unless they're retired like I am, because I got out, I ran as soon as I could. Jesus Christ. If I got this right, just like I got Kevin Albert, this is not going to end up well. So, okay, hold on. $8.7 million contract started on August 2024. USAO. That's a local contract. Hold on. Really? Oh my God. Oh my God. Hey, Ben. Well, I think we discovered a big boo-boo, Ben. Oh my God. So, beyond the conflict of interests and all the manipulation and the shaping and the deletion and the upgrading of software to hide a 227 search that actually occurred and is still in record in Magnet Forensic and Axiom, except in Celebrite, I just found what I need to confirm. Oh my God, Jesus, it's just ridiculous. Okay, I'm going to share this instead. Good morning. I wanted to keep you updated on the progress of the Karen Reed case. We are gathering everything that is needed for the May 25th evidentiary hearing. We have retained an outside digital expert to review the phone data. Hold on. Of Jen McCabe. Oh my God. This is not going well for me. Here we go. Oh my God. To review the phone data of Jen McCabe and support Trooper Guarino's findings. Oh my God. Can you stay where you are? Wait. Google search how long to die in the cold occurred at 6:30 and not 2:35 as the defense alleged. To support, with the help of Major Copenrath, the lab is rushing the processing of John O'Keefe's sweatshirt. When we obtained the sweatshirt at the hospital, only a quick examination was conducted before it was placed in an evidence bag. But Sergeant Buchanan did not see any large tears of evidence of a dog bite. A close examination by the lab will hopefully yield vehicle paint or plastic. Is that an instruction or a direct order? The lab produced criminalistic report regarding the pieces of taillight that were recovered from the scene. The finding of the report is the pieces fit together and fit into the remainder of the taillight that was removed from Reed's. Oh my God. Hold on, guys. Hold on. We're going back to it. Hold on. Jesus. There he goes. So, the lab produced criminalistic reports regarding the pieces of taillight that were recovered from this scene. The findings of the report is the pieces fit together and into the remainder of the taillight that was removed from Reed's vehicle after it was seized. The tainting process of Ms. Reed's phone is moving along. Chris Kelly's team at the AGOs has the data and is working on it. When he has removed the privileged material, oh my God. Then it goes to Attorney Yannetti before it gets to us. I would bet Yannetti will still on approving it, but luckily we are back in court in a few weeks to make argument to the judge. This is huge. I don't know how else to say it, but this is huge. We have we have stumbled into something huge. And even though there are a lot of people out there that may not understand it, let me let you know. I'm sure there's a lot of us and a lot of you, some of you that are listening and watching and looking and live or not live, that understand the gravity, the grave concerns that this should bring to everybody. Because we just stumbled in, I don't know who to call. I'm not sure whether I don't know who to call. I don't know, should I call? I don't know who to call, but something's got to be done, and this has got to be brought into the attention of somebody. I'm not keeping this all tucked in on my pocket, and I'm not keeping it in my heart either, because I can't. I mean, a righteousness or a righteous good citizen would not be able to keep this. You can't. So I have to start printing and producing and putting copies together and emails and whatnot. And I'm going to try to share this. I don't know who to call first. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna leave my phone open, but I have to end this stream because I was waiting for a couple of pieces of information, and these are billions of dollars and millions of dollars that are still allocated. Some have been paid to these people. Oh my God. Chris Kelly emailed about the defense probably stalling on British afterwards through Kelly and Guarino. So I agree so much it hasn't been stopped or explained makes me consider my own sanity. Well, it's not about like that. Like, how can anybody stumble into this and not do something? This is alarming for anybody who understands. Like, okay, let me put it this way. Let's say, for instance, that do you think that there's other content creators who actually have known this and have not? I seriously doubt this. Like, how? Where's Melanie Little? Where's Andrea? Where are all these people? Where's Emily Baker? Where are all these people? Where's the office of the attorney of Andrew Myers? That's who I'm calling. Whoa! Wait. Wait. Office of Andrew Myers. It's Friday. It's a Friday, baby. Nobody's gonna answer the phone. Well, Andrew Myers. What if they don't want to answer the phone? What if they rather not even know? And that's the problem that we're having. It's like, how do I know that? How to contact? Okay, I understand. Oh my God. Okay, I found the number. So let me see. Somebody has to be able to answer. I mean, it's, people work on Fridays, except if you have a cast on and you're playing Karen Reed instead. Well, let me see if somebody answers. If somebody answers, I'm going to have to let you guys go because you know how that goes. Nope. Okay, let me use this number instead. Somebody has to answer. Astrological information. If I observe, yucky, it isn't. Things really hard. So, hold on, Whiskey. I'm gonna let you out in a minute. Okay, this is an emergency situation, and you know how we do it, right? Country first. So wait. Okay, so I gotta take my Josie Lou hat off and put the G.I. Josie hat on. Just give me a second. I'm gonna put you on a.
I'll see if this person is available.
Hello. Yes, my name is Josie. I'm trying to get a hold of attorney Andrew Myers. I'm calling in regards to, well, it's related somewhat to Karen Reed case and some of the findings that I have been able to. Oh. My God, Attorney. Oops. Well, I wasn't expecting that. So, for the sake of, you know, doing things with integrity, I'm gonna wrap this up. I have work to do. I gotta put a couple of documents together, and then I have work to do. So, I'll probably come back. I don't know how I went from the calls to 227, and here we are ending in this, but this is how things happen, right? I need to come back to finish the findings on oh my God. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to take a break and come back later. But it is Friday. Enjoy your weekend, and we're gonna catch up soon. Okay, full circle. Yes, sir. Full circle it is. You guys know how to get a hold of me, and if you need to, don't hesitate to do so. Hold on. Oh my God. Where's Melanie Little when you need her? Where are all these people? I need telephone numbers. I need email addresses. I'm not just going to send one email. I'm going to send it to everybody. If everybody wants to ignore it, then that's fine. But I'm going to cover all my bases. We're going to have to share this information and give it a extensive sort of sharing it with everybody that is involved and that is a justice warrior in this situation. So we can see what we can do. Alrighty then. Where are my little yeah, I'm gonna share this before we go. Write that down because I'm gonna delete it from the thing. And but for all of you that are here, write it down, and I hope you got it. And if you need me, you know how to get a hold of me. I will touch bases soon, I hope. So yeah. I can't believe this. I can't believe it. No. No, I'm gonna let you go anyway, so don't be mean to your mommy. You're such a good boy. You're such a good boy. You don't like the silence, do you? Oh, get used to it. Let's go, Whiskey. Let's go.